As far as Bay Street South, I did about 78.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Eustis City Hall. It is 5 p.m. It's Thursday, April the 15th, 2021. This is a workshop of the Eustis City Commission on Enclaves. Mr. Nybert, or Lori, which one are you starting us off?
Ms. Barnes.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes.
Mayor, Commissioners, Lori Barnes, Development Services Director.
Technical difficulties. There we go.
Well, good evening again. Lori Barnes, Development Services Director, presenting on the City Commission requested Enclave Workshop. This City Commission requested Enclave Workshop will include a brief presentation from staff regarding statutory provisions for annexation of enclaves. Although the city is not currently pursuing an agreement with Lake County regarding annexation of enclaves, and staff is not recommending that we do so, we will briefly touch upon the advantages, disadvantages, and considerations should the Commission decide in the future to request an agreement from Lake County. Chapter 171 of the Florida statutes addresses municipal annexation and contraction. This section is also the section of the statute that discusses voluntary annexations. Section 171.046 specifically states that the policy of the state is to eliminate enclaves due to the problems they create in planning, growth management, and service delivery. The statute include provisions to allow the annexation of 110 acres or less through two options. The first being an interlocal agreement with the county having jurisdiction. The second, which applies to only enclaves with fewer than 25 electors. And that would be via a referendum with 60% of the electors in that area to be annexed, casting an affirmative vote for annexation. And finally, this provision of the statutes doesn't apply to undeveloped or unimproved property, which is why you see voluntary annexation requests for vacant properties coming before you. An enclave, under the statutes, means any unincorporated or improved or developed area that is enclosed within and bounded on all sides by a single municipality, or any unincorporated or improved area that is enclosed within and bounded by a single municipality and a natural or man-made obstacle, like a lake or a road, that provides for passage of vehicular traffic to the unincorporated area only through the municipality. Now, this definition is very important when you consider the city limits map and the enclaves or the apparent enclaves that one sees when they look at our map. This enclave map shows the city's joint planning area. It shows the areas that fully meet the strict definition of enclaves in green. Other areas, shown in dark red, might appear to be enclaves, but they do not meet the definition of an enclave under the statute. I will bounce back and forth between this slide and the map. Again, the areas in green meet the strict definition, and they could be annexed pursuant to the Florida statutes 171.046, either through agreement with the county or through referendum. There are about 15 of those areas on the map scattered throughout the city. The areas in dark red don't meet the definition. I know you've heard the city manager use the term functional enclave or peen enclave. So they look like an enclave, they operate like an enclave, but they could not be annexed under this provision of the statute. Now, some of those areas in the dark red color could fall under this provision of the statute if the city and the county agreed to have the jurisdictional maintenance responsibility and ownership of the roads transferred from the county to the city. Now, you'll see some of those areas down in the Seminole Dicey, up along 44, off of State Road 19 in some cases. However, there are some areas shown in red that still would not meet the definition. For example, there are some of those areas in dark red that are bounded by Eustis and Tavares. So they don't meet the definition of being bounded by a single city or enclosed by a single city. There are other areas that actually have a gap between the city boundary and an unincorporated area or a bordering city that makes those areas not meet the definition of an enclave, even though they look like an enclave and feel like an enclave. Advantages to annexation of the enclaves. Many of those pockets of unincorporated areas surrounded by the city limits could be annexed through interlocal agreement or referendum. That would minimize the holes in our city limits, as it were. Annexation of those enclaves would reduce or eliminate confusion regarding service providers, and it would reduce the duplication of services, which would increase the efficiency and cost effectiveness of providing services. What most don't understand is when you have multiple service providers serving one area, the best example is solid waste. We have 2 waste management companies with large trucks running on our roads, requiring road maintenance. One provider would reduce the impact to our roadways and reduce the tax burden overall to residents in both the county and the city. When the duplication of services is there, every taxpayer bears the burden. The final advantage would be an increased ad valorem tax revenue to the city of approximately $207,000 a year. Some disadvantages to annexing the enclaves is many of these enclave areas, roadway maintenance has been deferred. The roads are in bad condition. There are drainage issues in many of these areas that have not been addressed. The International Property Maintenance Code addresses maintenance of single-family homes and businesses. The city implements the International Property Maintenance Code through code enforcement, and we find that in these enclave areas, the properties are not kept up to standards of the Property Maintenance Code. And that would require administrative code enforcement hours to address, not to mention bringing those properties into compliance with the city's municipal code, where the county code of ordinances may differ from the city's. The city would likely see some reduced utility revenues, as many of those unincorporated areas are connected to city utilities, and they pay a 25% upcharge because they are outside of the city limits. And finally, moving forward with an annexation by interlocal agreement with the county could create some discord with unincorporated property owners, who, many of which may see a reduction in their annual costs and taxes due to the differential between the city and the county as far as non-ad valorem assessments and the reduction of the 25% upcharge on their utility bill. Yet there are many who do not wish to be part of the city limits. Other considerations are voluntary annexation program, and the Commission's fee waiver associated with annexation is resulting in a slow reduction of some of these enclave areas, especially when paired with Ordinance 0809, which requires annexation or an agreement to annex if an unincorporated property wants to connect to city water. We see probably 2 or 3 annexations a year because those properties want to connect to water and they are eligible to annex, they meet the statutory requirements. We probably see a handful of the outside utility agreements and agreements to annex, which is a contractual arrangement that the city can act upon when we are legally able to annex those properties. One of the issues with fully enclosing annexations in the future through voluntary annexation is that many of the properties in the enclaves and the Peen enclaves were developed and connected to city water prior to the adoption of Ordinance 0809 in 2009. So water connection will never be an incentive for those property owners to annex into the city limits. And we touched a little on the disadvantages. A major consideration for the City Commission is the administrative costs and the construction costs that the city would face if they were to move forward with annexation of the enclaves. As this workshop was at the request of Commission and for the purpose of Commission discussion on the enclaves, unless there are any questions, I will leave it to the Commission.
Any questions of the board?
I just have one. Can you go back to the map? So the areas in red that you were saying, let's just say the ones up top. So you were saying that by definition, right now, they don't meet the definition of enclaves. Could they come in voluntarily?
Absolutely.
They could go voluntarily. I'm sorry, I apologize. So they could come in voluntarily.
Yes, as long as they meet the statutory requirements for voluntary annexation, they are contiguous, they are compact, they do not create an enclave, they would be able to annex voluntarily.
I just know this seemed to be important about 6 years ago, and it's just something to look at. And this is also something, especially, and I know not to create more of an enclave with the county, I mean, I know that. But some of these road issues, that could be things that we could work, maybe possible agreements with the county, especially since if we did, the roads are already in bad shape. Maybe there's something we could work out with them. I mean, is that a possibility?
I guess would the result be in trying to work out a road agreement with the county, would the ultimate goal be by the commission to then have the county allow us to annex those properties under agreement, or use as an incentive to induce voluntary annexation?
It's just it's a conversation that we
Okay.
have to have, you know, especially, and I did talk to a couple of the county commissioners, and
Okay.
they were very interested in just having the conversation, again, a workshop, not to force anybody. So I guess the biggest thing is, you know, one of the ones was, you know, the 207,000 ad valorem, which we didn't have that, you know, number before. But I appreciate the hard work, and it's just something, you know, maybe we could look at with the county for a future meeting, possibly.
From a homeowner standpoint, you said there's a upcharge, 25% upcharge
On utilities?
on utilities. Is that over whatever their bill is, there's 25% of that, or?
No, if our people pay $1 per gallon, they pay $1.25 per gallon.
Okay. And the fee waiver, you talked about a fee waiver. What do you mean by that?
The City Commission, since 2008, has had a program to waive the fee for annexation and the associated comprehensive plan amendment. For a residential property, that fee is about $1,200 that would normally be borne by the property owner requesting voluntary annexation. And through the annexation incentive program, the commission has waived those fees.
And the last question, you said that if they hook up to water, it wouldn't affect them. Now, there's not county water and city water, it's just all water, and they just pay extra.
Well,
The county does not provide municipal water services, only the city. Some of these properties are still on wells. Some of them are connected to city water and were connected prior to 2009. In 2009, the City Commission adopted an ordinance requiring annexation or an agreement to annex in order to connect to city water. The situation is that we have many properties in these enclave areas or the Peen enclaves that connected to city water before 2009. They were not subject to annexation or any agreement to annex when they connected.
Okay, thanks.
Karen?
no, this was very good. Thank you. I studied this map. It was very interesting.
Do they pay a fire assessment?
Yes, and that is why some of the properties that have a lower taxable value would actually realize a cost savings coming into the city between losing the county's non-ad valorem assessments and losing the 25% increased rate on their water and sewer.
I think we did the last calculation we did, it said about a value of a house of about $120,000
With a homestead exemption.
with the homestead
Yeah, with
exemption.
homestead exemption.
Correct.
Anything else, anyone?
We're done.
Thank you all for bringing all this together. I think what we'll do is kind of let the commissioners take a look at it, chew over it for a little bit, and then if you want to maybe get back with the county at our next joint meeting, maybe it's something we talk about with them if we decide to move forward with any of it at all. As for this commissioner, as for me, as being mayor, I have never for forced annexation, and I've heard loud and clear. I've been in office since 2009 with a little break in between, but never have been for forced annexing anybody in. So if you're going to live in the city, I thought you'd be happy that you're here. It's up for us to make an environment where people want to live here. So.
My concern is they're in the middle of the unincorporated. They're right in the middle of our city. I've gone to areas where, I'd be afraid to go down at night. And it's not so much the area, but it's the conditions, the roads and the code enforcement violations and things like that. My concern is that they're inside of Eustis, so we need to hold them accountable.
Absolutely. And I think you brought that up at one of our last meetings, is that the county code enforcement needs to be holding these people accountable. If we can't, they need to.
Exactly.
Well, and they also need to be addressing the roads. I mean, this is a discussion that we've had with prior, roadways in the county, and so they do need to do that. I guess part of it, I look at it too as they're getting city services, and everybody likes to get all the city services, but nobody wants to pay for it. And that's something else.
I also think that the average citizen doesn't know that this is county. And so it looks like Eustis is not taking care of it or making things aside, so that bothers me also.
I talked to a gentleman he was in Eustis, he pays Eustis taxes, the waste management truck ran over the stop sign, Eustis needed to take care of it, so I pulled him up on the property appraiser. He's unincorporated. His address says Eustis, you know, his mailing address is Eustis, but he swore it. So I don't think, some people know, you know. They see they pay taxes and that's all they pay.
It's just like that mailing address goes all the way to the St. Johns River.
Oh, I know.
Anything bad that happens out.
Oh, I know, it's Eustis. It goes to Eustis.
Yeah.
Eustis man.
Yeah, so, I think what we'll do is let's all talk about it, think about it a little bit, get back with Mr. Nyberg if you want to further this, and then if we want to further it with a conversation with the county commission at our next joint meeting, we can do that as well. All right? Anybody else make concerns? We're adjourned. All right. 50 minutes. 50 minutes. Y'all can do that.